This is the Patriots Catch-22 podcast with Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
I'm Evan Lazar. Evan Lazar. Hello, everybody.
Nailed it. Joined as always by Alex Barth.
That's a fit. That's a match.
No risk it, no biscuit.
22.
Here is Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm so 50-50 on that one. That was the hardest choice I made. Anthony Jennings, Mack Wilson. Which guy is it? But
That's the hardest choice.
Of all the stuff on the roster projection, yeah, that was the toughest one.
Okay.
What was tougher for you?
The whole roster.
Well, okay. All right.
I'm just messing with
Go
you.
watch Xavier Worthy.
We're back in studio today.
Yeah.
I just realized as I was walking in here, Morel, it's been a couple weeks since we've been live on the show. That's okay. It's been a couple weeks, and it's good to be back from vacation and back to Patriots Training Camp. And this is...
Well, back from vacation. First off, congratulations to you and Jess and Atlas.
All the pleasantries. Yes,
Meanwhile,
thank
I
you.
am over here. I remain married to the game.
Another word for single.
I'm married to the game.
Well, it's me. It's Evan Lazar. Me, Evan Lazar, Alex Barth, Morel behind the glass for you. At the next hour or so, we're going to talk Patriots Training Camp, day 2. And on the one hand, I'm not just saying this just because I'm carrying anyone. I love training camp. Like this is my favorite time of year. I'm so jacked up that camp is back and that we get to cover training camp and cover the practice. This is the best access that we get to the team all year long because we actually get to watch practice, which is a ton of fun and just something that I absolutely love doing. With that said, Alex, I have to be honest. This is a huge tease the first couple days. This new 5-day acclimation period, I totally understand it from the players' perspective. They totally are in their right to ramp it up slowly and not just get thrown right into padded practices on day 1. With that being said, it's a tease for the media. It's a tease for us. We get out there, wide-eyed and ready to go on day 1 yesterday, and it's an extension of what they were doing in the spring. It's really not live. You're not evaluating the line of scrimmage, that's for sure, and it's a little bit of a slow ramp-up. But with that being said, we're still going to talk about everything that we saw, or most of the things that we saw, and break it all down, and probably overreact a little bit too much to a few things here and there, as we tend to do, but we try not to. We try to tell you what's real, and I think that's a big thing about this time of year too, not to get on my soapbox, but there's certain things that are just training camp things, and then there's certain things that actually have real football implications, and we try our best on this show to separate those two things. We don't want to give you things that are just another run-of-the-mill training camp practice and nothing to really freak out about or to be over-the-top excited about either, but try to keep it even-keeled and talk about the things that actually matter. So along those lines, my big opening take to camp 2 days in, because we're not in pads yet and I don't really have a huge opening take in terms of the competitive portions of practice just yet. My opening take is that if there's anything to be really positive about out of the first 2 days, it's that for the most part, outside of Mike Onwenu and Kelvin Anderson and Cody Davis, shout out Cody Davis, the Patriots are healthy going into this camp.
Yeah.
They're healthy. I think the team, in some ways, it's not quite as much buzz as the 2021 training camp where you had the free agency spending spree, you had Mac Jones in the first round, and there was a ton of buzz coming into that season. But there's a little bit of a pep in the step. I think a combination of things. Bill O'Brien, of course, being back for the offensive players is huge. The retention of the defensive players and what they're building over there on the defensive side of the ball, I think, is bringing a lot of optimism to that side of things. They're healthy. There's some good juju, no pun intended. And last but not least, the guys that are healthy outside of those 3 guys I mentioned off the top, they all passed the conditioning test and they're all out there. And I think that that's something that's really positive, and it's something that doesn't always happen. Sometimes you start camp and there's 8 guys on PUP. Sometimes you start camp and some big names didn't fail the conditioning test and aren't working out with the team and the rest of the roster. So I think there's some good mojo, good vibes right now, and I compared it to 2021. That team, even though they didn't get where they wanted to go ultimately, and the playoff game was a dud, won 10 games and made the playoffs. I think that would be a pretty successful season if that's how this goes.
Yeah, I would agree with you, and I just think even on top of that, and like you mentioned, everybody came in healthy. We'll talk about the injury today, which I think holds some significance, but it's there's even within the practices themselves, I think there's a rejuvenation and energy.
Yeah.
Especially on the offensive side of the ball. I think you're seeing already the impact a guy like Bill O'Brien. Oops, sorry. A guy, it's just too sweaty. I need to get off everything to sweat.
Alex needs a shower.
I do. I really do. Hot day, humid. I don't do well in the humidity.
We should have a media locker room.
No, we shouldn't. No, we shouldn't. No. I'm going to cut you off right there. You're seeing, I think, already the impact Bill O'Brien makes on just the way the offense,
just the way it runs,
operates.
Yeah.
And I know it's kind of a really low bar to be like, hey, they're not like everybody knows where to line up. Everybody knows when they should be in or out of the formation. Everybody knows what the play call is. There's really only been 2 instances so far through 2 days that there was a bit of miscommunication. Trace McSorley had to call a timeout right out of the huddle on day 1, and I don't remember if it was Mac or Zappy. One of them today, it was Mac Jones, and I don't know who was wrong in this instance, but Mac Jones and J.J. Taylor, there was a moment as they were trying to get lined up where there was a bit of indecision about where J.J. Taylor should be in the formation. But that's it. Through 2 days, that's it. And it's not even like there's been other fringe moments. They are operating succinctly, and that's great to see right now.
Yeah, I think that's something that is important because when you read the tweets from practice, and this is, again, I'm not trying to, pick on anybody that does the practice stats and does we all do it. That's our job. Our job is to tell you what happened out at practice. But when you read the tweets and you read some of the ups and downs that the offense has had, and quite frankly, the results as they work in the red zone here predominantly in the first couple days of practice, the results for the Patriots offense hasn't always been there. It hasn't always been great. And by the way, you can join the fun at 855-PATS-500, web radio at patriots.com. Get that in there as well. It hasn't always been great. Mac Jones has thrown an interception to Kyle Duggar on back-to-back days. On the very first pass of training camp in competitive drills, Mac Jones threw an interception to Kyle Duggar in the back of the end zone on a pass intended for Mike Gesicki. So some of the stuff that you read and some of the stuff that you see is going to be negative about the offense. But I think it's important what you just outlined right there, that this type of negative is a lot different than the type of negative we were talking about last summer. This is just getting timing down, getting guys kind of in the proper places, and the pecking order I think is still a work in progress of where exactly Mac is going to be looking in certain situations and things like that. But mainly when you're in the red zone, it's a condensed area. There was a portion of practice today where Mac had a little bit of a streak of incompletions where I think they ran the same play 3 times in a row, and he basically made the same throw 3 times in a row, and by the 3rd time, the defense is just sitting there really, you just ran it's the same play, right? So I think that the combination of the tight spacing of the red zone, the fact that you're throwing a new offensive system at guys, a couple new key pieces like Juju and Mike Gesicki, and day 1, day 2, you're already working in the hardest area of the field to score.
Right.
That I think is a lot of this.
Without being able to go to the easiest way to score them.
Right, without being able to run the football. And on top of without being able to run the football, I'd also say that they're not really adding quite yet very many bells and whistles either. It's not like they're running a ton of misdirection.
It's pretty bare bones.
Yeah, it's pretty basic route concepts, just things that goal line, red zone style concepts in the passing game. So I know that sounds like a cop-out for the offense or trying to sugarcoat what's going on offensively, but I think it's a long way of saying that we are far, far away from the dysfunction that we saw last year. This is more execution-based things that they need to clean up that I'm confident they will clean up than a broken system in a dysfunctional situation. And that, as much as that bar is low, that is a bar that they obviously needed to clear, and I think they have cleared in this early stage.
Yeah, the perfect example, I was kind of flashing back to last year because the offense wasn't great yesterday. It wasn't great. I don't think it was as bad as maybe some people portrayed, but it wasn't great. But I remember last year they weren't great on the first day, and my big takeaway was, and I think this is true. Yeah. Throughout a training camp, even a great team that's great on both sides of the ball, there's going to be days the offense wins, there's going to be days the defense wins. And what you look for, and we didn't know what was to come at this time, I'm talking about the first day of camp last year. Yeah. What you're looking for is, all right, the defense won today. Is the offense going to come out with a sense of urgency tomorrow because you want to see that competitive fire? Are they going to come out with a sense of urgency tomorrow and punch back, essentially, right? And go punch for punch because that's what you want to see. And again, it wasn't perfect for the offense today, but they came out and they went punch for punch. I thought there were some really nice plays made by the offense today. Yeah. I thought you got a really good indication of what at least part of their identity should be in the passing game. And Evan, you're going to hate this. I'm sorry, but I'm going to say it. They're going to be a jump ball team. Their offense is going to feature a lot of 50-50 stuff. 7 of the, and not that all these guys are going to make the team, but 7 of the 9 receivers they currently have under contract are over 6 foot. 4 of the 9 are currently over 6'2". Yeah. That's not including 6'5" Hunter Henry. That's not including 6'6" Mike Gesicki. And you saw it today. Mac Jones' first touchdown pass, back shoulder fade, where Devontae Parker goes up, made a good play. Not that he's much taller than Marcus Jones, but went up, jumped, caught the ball, got the feet down on the sideline, made the catch. You saw Mike Gesicki a little bit later in practice go up and climb the ladder. There was a linebacker lurking in zone, kind of in between Mac and Gesicki, and Mac put it up where the linebacker couldn't get it. Gesicki has to go up and get it, and he goes up and gets it. And I think that's going to be some of what they need to do.
Right. And in the red zone, that's something that everybody does.
I mean, but they haven't. They've been very small at receiver. The point being they haven't been able to do that in recent years. Yeah. In the red zone, between the 20s, whatever, I think you're seeing that is going to be more. It's not going to be everything. It shouldn't be everything. But that is going to be more. If it was going to be everything, I think they would have been a little more aggressive in DeAndre Hopkins because there's nobody better at that than DeAndre Hopkins. But I think it is going to be more of their identity this year than it's been in the past. The other thing that stood out to me about the offense, and even within the struggles, what can you take away? And this is going to be some people are going to call this the ultimate homer take. I think it's relevant. Mac Jones' rookie year in camp. Yeah. He would be really good until he made his first mistake. Whether it was interception, whether he took a bad sack, what have you. And you could tell it bugged him. He wasn't the same player after he made that first mistake. This was throughout the summer. Got a little better later on, but it was a thing with him that first summer that Mac Jones is really good until he throws a pick, and then all bets are off. Right. And then last summer, it was just all bad. We never got to see him recover from a mistake because there was never anything good before
holding the ball and taking coverage sacks in practice.
Mac Jones comes out, first play at camp yesterday, throws a pick. I'm like, oh boy, all right, here we go. And I thought from there he had a pretty good day. I thought from there, for what it was, he had a pretty good day. And then today
was the opposite. Today was he had a good stretch, and then he threw the pick to Kyle Duggar towards the end, and I was like, oh, well, I would have written that was a really good day for the offense.
And it wasn't in that thing where, and I'm the same way as you. I think you take that out, he had a really good day. Yeah. It wasn't in the sense, I mean, that was one of the last passes. You didn't. I think it might have been his last pass. You didn't get to see him have that bounce back on the field, but what does he do? Drop down. Did 10 push-ups, went over, and then
the push-ups,
and then he went over to Kyle Duggar and he dapped him up.
Marine, how many push-ups did you have to do in the Marines? 5,000 million.
Mike wasn't on there.
Sorry, got to turn the right button on. Depends on what I was doing.
for not turning your mic on, how many push-ups would you have to do?
And 20 is the limit for a PFT test.
There you go.
So Mac did about 10 for an interception. So whatever the conversion
is,
but
get it to 20.
he did that. He goes over. He had a laugh with Kyle Duggar. I don't think it bothered him a ton. And there is another side of that where you do want to see some competitive fire, right? But
I want to talk about the interception because
it was a bad play. It was a really bad play.
I want to talk about the interception, but I don't want to lead on the Mac was the first bullet point here on our agenda. Yeah. I don't want to lead with that. I think what I do want to lead with though is that I saw in 2 plays, and we're working with such a small sample size that just bear with me for the fact that I'm literally talking about 2 plays. You mentioned
but this is where we're at.
But you mentioned high point and the kind of jump ball contested catches as something that this offense is going to have to rely on. The 2 plays that I really thought today where I said, that's what this Patriots offense needs to be. That's what this offense needs to do. And both plays came, not surprisingly, when they pushed the ball to the high red zone and they gave the offense a little bit more space to operate. They've been working inside the 8-yard line for the first 2 days of practice almost exclusively. And then towards the end of practice today, they finally pushed the ball to the 15, and they gave the offense a little bit more space to work and space to maneuver. The first one was the longest pass and probably the best throw that Mac has made so far in camp to Devontae Parker on the touchdown over, I think it was Christian Gonzalez.
That was the second one.
The deep crossing route.
Okay, yeah. Because the first one was over Marcus Jones.
What happened on that play, he was under center play action. He runs under center play action, hits the back foot, has a nice step up in the pocket, because Riley Reef, we'll talk about him in a second.
Yeah.
Steps up in the pocket, and Devontae Parker and Kendrick Bourne, they ran like a Yankee-style concept where, they intersect crossing routes in the middle of the field. One guy goes one way, the other guy goes the other, and then Mac just throws where the safety isn't. If the safety helps to Bourne, he throws to Parker and vice versa. And Parker got open, he got behind Gonzalez, and Mac dropped it in the bucket and for a really nice touchdown pass about 20 yards. That under center play action with the shots off of it, that's going to have to be a part of this offense. I think that's a part of an offense that Mac can thrive in, that Mac can do really well in, is under center play action. Then they got to Juju. And this is something that I think was a little bit optimistic about today too, was I thought today Juju looked a lot better than yesterday and started making some plays. And you started feeling his presence out on the field, which is a good thing. The Juju touchdown.
Yeah.
That was gun action. Shotgun, but play action still. They pull Cole Strange. They get the linebackers to creep up a little bit. He beats Marcus Jones to the inside on like a little skinny post, and Mac just dots him with it in the back of the end zone, touchdown. So, right. Yes, both involve play action, which I think is not a coincidence, right? I think that's going to have to be play action, RPO, some sort of way to alter the defense. I think I don't necessarily think that that's as much about Mac as it is about helping the playmakers get open.
Yeah.
Because it allows them to get isolated one-on-one matchups and takes guys out of passing lanes and things like that. So it makes it a little bit easier for receivers to get open, and I think that that's a big thing. But those two throws, in terms of the style of the throw, we're talking about a touch deep ball, right? A deep over route where he can loft it in there and drop it in the bucket. And we're talking about a slant, really a quick hitting kind of slant style route where we're not asking him to drive the football into an 18-yard window on a deep dig. We're asking him to drive the ball in a window on like a 7 to 9 yard slant, right? So those are the types of things that I think they're going to have to build this offense around. The touch deep passes, the quick hitters over the middle of the field, like those are the things that Mac Jones does well. Now, can they build an entire offense around that? Just kind of that style remains to be seen. I think they can, and especially if you add in the fact that the quick game out of empty and things like that, where we're really not talking about plays that are 7 to 10 yards down the field. Now we're talking about like those 3 to 5 yard dump offs and things like that. Right. That's going to be a part of this as well, and you kind of bring that all together, and that's your offense. What can't be a part of this offense on any level is the interception that we saw to Kyle Duggar, because
I don't want to take anything away from Kyle Duggar, but that was like
it's a designed rollout.
Yeah,
and some people, and I guess you could give him this pass, but I try not to because I feel like people think I'm a Mac apologist enough anyways.
No, he should not have made that play.
Some people thought that in a game he probably just would have been sacked instead of throwing a pick, but he tried to make a play. It was maybe like a 4th down situation, or I don't know what, something like that, right? Where he was just kind of trying to make something happen. But the main thing is that every single time, we saw this all last summer too, when they tried to install some of the Shanahan stuff. Any sort of moving pocket is a disaster. He doesn't throw well on the move. He doesn't have the athleticism or the arm talent to like throw across his body. Like that's a throw that he was trying to make that Josh Allen can make. We saw Josh Allen make it here last year. That's not a throw that Mac Jones can make. And I just want to take the things he does well, the under center play action stuff, the in-breaking routes over the middle of the field, the quick hitters. Like those are the things that he can win with his brain, win with his touch and his accuracy, and do well on. But all of the rolling pockets and the bootlegs, and like take those, throw them in the trash, and set the can on fire, right? Like that cannot be in the playbook. It's just not good offense for Mac Jones. It's not what he does well. And I think every single time we see them try to do it with him, it ends the same way. Either him taking a sack because he has no play to make, or him throwing an ill-advised interception. There's like no in-between there.
Yeah, I mean, it was, he tries to cut it back in, and then was he trying to throw the ball? Like, there was nobody near Kyle Duggar, and he hit Kyle Duggar right between the numbers. So I don't know what that one was, with the throw was like, yeah, it was a bad decision, and on those rollouts, it doesn't help. I don't even think, and this isn't, again, Mac made a really bad play, but nobody got open. They congested everything to the right side of the field. That happened
a couple times today. There was a few coverage sacks. I use air quotes for the people that are just listening to the podcast. Coverage sacks today that happened. They happened last year. It seemed like every other drop back was a coverage sack. Like that would happen all last season, last summer, I should say, during training camp. I don't think that it happened. It was quite the same, as bad, I should say, so far in the first 2 days. But it just seems to me, and look, you can take this, if you want to take a negative slant on this, it's that he's limited. He's limited. His scope of what he's capable of doing is pretty limited. Yeah. If you want to take a positive take on it, is that I do think you can build an offense around the things that I highlighted. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's not. I almost don't want to say it's like the San Francisco offense, because then you go back to that. Right. Oh my God, it's Shanahan, everything they did last year. But you're going about it a different way. But I think the core concepts are the same. It's a quick hitting, paint by number, matchup leverage based scheme, and you don't have the West Coast elements of it. You're doing it out of more of a spread set. But I mean, there's some overlap in there. Yeah,
I agree.
And I also, like, just on that line, I wonder if that's what they were trying to go for last year, and they just went too far in the other direction.
I think, and so I think they were, but I think the main thing is once they got into the season and they kind of scrapped some of, like, the under center, outside zone, Shanahan, McVay stuff, and they got into more spread, a lot of what they were doing spread-wise was really emphasizing the quarterback or the receivers making plays. Like, receivers just had to win on their routes, and the quarterback had to really make some really good downfield throws for that offense to succeed. And for better or worse, they don't really have receivers that can create separation on their own, and they don't have a playmaking quarterback in the sense of like a Mahomes or an Allen or a Herbert or one of those guys that can just run around and make plays. So the scheme's got to help in some way, shape, or form. And that's where play action, that's where RPO, that's where motion, that's where formations, right? We've seen a couple of these things where they're changing up formations and motioning guys and putting guys like tight ends outside or running backs inside and different guys in different spots. Like that's how you can help try to get guys open, get guys matchups that can be favorable, because you don't just have a guy that you can just run out to the X receiver spot and have him just beat the guy in front of him 10 times in a game. Like they just don't have that player on the roster. So I think that there's some bones there that they're really building upon. I want to talk a little bit about the receivers. Obviously, everybody wants to hear about the receivers. I talked a little bit about Juju. Like I said, not like much to go crazy about, but I thought today was a good day for Juju. I thought he's getting a little bit better, building it up slowly a little bit more and more. That throw that I mentioned, the pass, the touchdown pass that I had just kind of broke down, that was like, if you could have told Bill Belichick and Matt Groh and Bill O'Brien back in March that they were going to be able to hit that exact throw, they would have been like, yeah, this is exactly why we signed Juju. Yeah. Like, it was exactly what you drew up on the whiteboard when you made the signing in March. So I think that's really optimistic. That was probably the play that I said that should make Patriots fans excited, because that's exactly why Juju is here. He's been playing predominantly in the slot, I think almost exclusively in the slot. He's running, a lot of crossing routes, a lot of seams or skinny posts, and slants, like that type of thing. And he's going to be one of those guys that's going to win in the middle of the field for this team. And I thought it was interesting that Matt Groh, and I wanted to get a little bit more into Matt Groh than we can have time for today, but maybe we can talk about it next time a little bit more. He mentioned that Juju is not going to be a far departure from some of the other slot receivers that we've seen here. And people were like, you're saying he's, like Edelman or Welker? And I think he meant more Jacoby.
Yeah, well, the other interesting thing, like on top of that, I forget who, was it Bill today? Somebody said today, it was Bill or Matt, no, Mac was there to say, somebody said today that they were building things into the offense that Juju used to succeed in Pittsburgh and in Kansas City, like things. So if you put those two together, that's Jacoby Myers. That is just straight up. He's going to be like slot receivers have been here, but also there's going to be elements that he succeeded with in Pittsburgh and Kansas City. That's that big slot stuff that Jacoby Myers did. That's curls. that's you know, direct ins, things like that, where it's just get to the intermediate, use your size to create separation. And the difference being, I think, with him and Jacoby is he's going to be able to do a little more after the catch.
Right, exactly. So once they can move that play-action play that they hit the touchdown on today, once they can move back even further, and now all of a sudden he's catching that and then he's running with it after the catch, that's why he's here. That design and that type of route and all that is exactly why they made the sign.
I will say, though, there were a few periods where I thought Juju wasn't as targeted, and in those periods – it was Christian Gonzalez covering him.
Yeah,
Christian Gonzalez. I didn't notice him a ton yesterday. And again, they weren't. It was all very heavy set tight end. I thought Christian Gonzalez was very good.
We'll get to Christian Gonzalez. I'm gonna do this. Is a
right. You actually did a rundown for the show.
I did a rundown to keep us on track
because I'll get 3 podcasts and 2 radio shows I have to do today.
Nice flex.
98.5thessportshub.com. I'll be on Patriots Beat and I'll be on the radio tonight.
We don't have time for
Sports Hub Patriots.
Anyways, I'm going to compliment Sandwich, the wide receivers, right now. So I complimented Juju.
Yes.
Thought he looked good today. So compliment Sandwich. I got to be negative now, and then I'll compliment somebody after that.
It's a criticism. It's not negative.
Okay,
it's a criticism.
Thank you. Criticism. Tyquan Thornton, and everybody knows that I love me some speed.
I mean, that first practice of OTAs, you were ready to put Tyquan on the All-Pro team.
To crown him. I was ready. I was ready for the year 2 breakout. Now, the one caveat that I'm still going to use, and everybody's going to say, oh, you always do this, Evan, and the guy stinks, and you just don't want to say. I'm still using this caveat. I don't care. The one caveat that I'm going to use is that Tyquan Thornton's area of the field is between the 20s.
Yeah, he's not going to pop in the red zone.
He's not a red zone player. Like, he just isn't. Okay, so let's throw that aside for a second. He has, I think, kind of struggled in these first 2 practices to get away from coverage. He's been targeted only 1 time in the 2 practices, and he was smothered on the route, and the ball sailed out of the back of the end zone. It was almost essentially a throwaway. And then there was a moment today, and this is what's more troubling to me than the lack of separation, because I think in between the 20s he'll separate. But the part that really troubled me was a moment where he appeared to me, and I'm saying this delicately because I don't know for 100% sure, but it appeared to me like he ran the wrong route. And he had a little route, it looked like it was sort of a converted style route where the corner was sitting outside of him, right? The corner was outside of him, into the sideline.
Yeah.
And instead of hitting the out and then returning back into the middle of the field and kind of sitting down right inside of the corner, he kept running into coverage and got himself into coverage. Like, he ran himself into the defender. And immediately after the play, Mac Jones ran over to him because I think it was the last play of the sequence. And Mac Jones ran over to him and started correcting him and saying, instead of running and then continuing into the coverage, I want you to come back in and get yourself into a better spot. And he took the teaching moment, and he took the critique, and now that's all well and good. But I think the big thing is for me is that this came up on his film last year, was some issues with route running, and some of it was technique based, some of it was processing based, right? This was process, this is one technique. But overall, he was not a very good route runner as a rookie. And if he's not going to develop that sort of part of his game, then really all he is a guy that can run fast. And that's not what they need. They really would greatly benefit, and I think this is why I talk myself into it, is because they would greatly benefit from a year 2 breakout from Tyquan Thornton. And in 2 days, I've been a little bit skeptical of that happening.
Well, again, you talk about, the red zone's not necessarily going to be his area of expertise, but we've talked about this in the wake of the DeAndre Hopkins thing that, all right, well, somebody, whether it's Kendrick Bourne, whether it's Tyquan Thornton, somebody has to, maybe it's Devontae Parker, somebody, or Juju's, but somebody has to emerge as that true number 1, that coverage dictating receiver. And I'm not saying Thornton has to be at his best in the red zone, but ideally that guy is going to play at that level at any spot on the field. We got the definition yesterday from Matt Groh of a number one wide receiver,
basically.
right? Good at everything. And if Thornton's not going to be good in the red zone, I'm not saying that means he can't be a number one wide receiver, but he's got to really be special in between the 20s at that point to justify it. Last year, we saw some flashes of route running creativity in the red zone.
Yeah,
he had
we
the
did.
touchdown against the Giants in the preseason.
Yeah.
The one he caught from Zappe in Cleveland, where again, he breaks off he sees the quarterback moving out of the pocket. He breaks off his route. He comes back. He gets himself open. So coming into this, I'm like, all right, and he's not going to be a red zone threat. That's not his game, but can he build on that and just be a factor in the red zone? Even if
better
he's
than
not
we expected even.
Right. I don't need him to be their top option in the red zone. He shouldn't be. Like we said off the top of the show, They have Devontae Parker. They have Mike Gesicki. They have Hunter Henry. They have these guys that can go up and climb the ladder and be competitive in terms of vertical separation. But if Thornton's going to be the guy I think we all think he needs to be for this offense to maximize, he needs to be a guy that is going to be, when you're in 12 personnel, is going to be one of your two best options in the red zone. And not that he's been terrible, but he hasn't popped in the red zone so far, and you kind of wanted to see that from him.
Yeah, I need him to clean up the route running. I think that's the main thing, is that you gotta be able to understand the complexities of the offense, like the conversions and the option routes and things like that. And that's not like truly an option route. It's more like a conversion where they give the receivers the freedom to, okay, if you have an out, but there's a corner, a cover two corner just squatting, waiting for you to run an out, then what's the point of you running that out, right? We're going to allow you to run something that's a little bit more advantageous against that type of coverage. The reason why I say all this isn't to pick on him for one route. The main reason why I say this is because that guy won't play in this. Like, Bill O'Brien's not going to play the receiver that doesn't know where he's going.
Right.
It just, that's not how they operate here. And he might be physically really talented, and he might be really fast, and he might be, why I am so bullish on him coming into camp was because he's really the only true burner in this group.
Yeah.
Nobody else can run like him, even close.
Not in that top group.
Well, maybe I think I know who you're talking about, and I'm going to get that.
60?
This is my compliment sandwich.
Okay.
Don't
All right.
ruin
All
the
right.
compliment sandwich,
I was
Alex.
giving you an easy transition, but okay, finish your point.
All right. And that should be, Tyquan's the one guy that I feel like, okay, this guy can stretch the field. This guy can take the top off, whatever cliche you want to use. And they could really use that to open up the middle of the field for where they really want to throw the football, which is to Juju and the tight ends and the backside of the backfield. If they can't have a burner out there, they're slow. They're a slow group. It's Devontae Parker on the outside. It's Juju in the slot. It's the two tight ends. It's not a very fast group. And that does have concerns for me. Now, compliment sandwich time.
Yeah.
The one guy, so the Patriots have been working in practice, and we're talking a lot about the passing game because there's no pads. So we're not talking a ton about the line of scrimmage yet. The Patriots have been working in the passing game with a foursome at receiver that you were not surprised by. It's Juju, it's Parker, it's Bourne, it's Thornton, it's the two tight ends.
And that was even pretty defined during a special teams period today on the side field. It was Mack in those four. The tight ends were doing special teams stuff.
Yeah.
It was Mack in those four receivers. So there's not even a fifth guy that's started to is behind them, but in that group. It's those four and then the
right.
drop
And
off.
then you also have the backs like Ty Montgomery and Ramondre Stevenson for the most part. The one guy that seems to be creeping into that group and has been over there, hasn't gotten a ton of reps, got a little bit more late in the practice today. But the one guy that's creeping over to that side of the field with the ones is Demario Douglas.
Yes.
And that is encouraging for multiple reasons. I think from a mental standpoint, it makes sense. He worked with the Patriots at the Shrine Bowl. He's been here all spring. He's been healthy and working all spring. And in rookie, what happened?
Oh, did you
today?
see the wind blew over
Sorry,
the camera on Zolak and Bertrand?
Oh, there you go. It was very windy up there today.
Yes.
Demario Douglas, I think there's reason to be a little bit optimistic here, and we both liked him coming in. I mean, we're a little bit biased because we saw him out in Vegas, so I guess maybe it was kind of one of our guys, so to speak. But he's somebody that you look at a lot of these receivers that they have. You mentioned all the guys that they have that are really big guys. They're good guys that are going to win with physicality. He's one of the few guys that's got that jitterbug.
He's got pop.
Yeah, he's literally.
And that's his nickname. Yeah. Pop.
He's got 4.4 speed. He's got some quickness to his game. He's got that more of that like shifty, explosive game to him, where they have a lot of these like long striders, like a Devontae Parker or a Mike Gesicki and Hunter Henry. He's someone that brings a different flavor, and we also mentioned the gadget plays and things like that they could do with him, the jet sweeps, the screen passes, like that type of stuff exists in his game as well. But I've been encouraged by what we've seen underneath the defense, like those little quick hitters, and that's something that we know that Brady used to really rely upon because it just gets the ball out of the quarterback's hands.
And when you look at the tackle position and where they're at right now with that, I've said how many times have I said Mac Jones is going to have to be his own best pass protector this year.
Right.
A guy like Demario Douglas who's going to get in and out of his first break quickly and then be able to create after the catch. That's the kind of guy that's going to eat in this offense. One more observation on Douglas for me, Evan.
Yeah.
I know you roll your eyes at the listed weights and all of that, but
yes.
He was
just because I know how the the thing with I know how it's made behind the scenes.
How the sausage is made?
Yeah.
But like objectively here. Yeah. Like, and shout out to the Patriots for sending us to the Shrine Bowl. That's why this stuff is so big. We saw him at the Shrine Bowl. Yes. I saw him. I stood next to him. I talked to him at the Shrine Bowl.
He was 179 at the combine.
He was 179 at the Shrine Bowl. He's 179. He's now listed at 192.
Yeah.
Eye test, that looks about right.
Do you think he gained that much weight?
I think he looks much more muscular.
He definitely bulked up.
Yeah.
13 pounds is a lot. I don't know if he...
Okay, but I'm saying, like, his body type has changed.
Yeah.
He was a twig. He was a bit of a twig, and he got hurt at the Shrine Bowl, and he's not a guy I'm looking at now. Like, looking at him at the Shrine Bowl, the big question, as it is with a lot of guys, I think we were even talking about this with Zay at the time, was, is he going to hold up?
Right.
In the NFL.
We still have to see the pads.
Right, but just like physically, is he going to be able to not like hold up in that sense, but is he going to be able to take enough hits?
Yeah.
And I look at Demario Douglas now. You like the term rocked up, right? A guy that's just
I do.
He's got that now. He's bigger. He's more built to play in the NFL. Yeah, we got to see how the play strength and how he uses that for leverage and press. But I think if they use him right, he's not a guy that's going to get pressed a lot.
Yeah.
But he looks the part. He looks bigger. The weight change, you can see it in his body, and he's not any less quick. He's not any less fast with that extra mass on his frame. So when you see that stands out.
He just has a totally different body type and skill set from the rest of the group.
Yeah.
And that makes him, I think, we're talking him up right now. But the main point of all of this is he's easily has the inside track to be the fifth receiver on the team.
think he's the guy right now. Yeah. I mean, you called him day 3's leading into the draft, and that's kind of. That's translated. You're seeing a similar skill set. He's not as advanced as a guy like Zay Flowers is.
Doing in Baltimore?
I haven't like gotten to catch up on any of the other teams.
It makes me sick.
Is he balling out?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, but
they're not in pads yet.
Yeah, sure. Okay, but anyways, I'm excited about Demario Douglas. Like I said, we're talking about him making the team as the fifth receiver. We're not talking about him being the next Julian Edelman. We're just saying that he's somebody that's popped. He's somebody that's working with the other regular guys that have been the other top guys in the offense, and that's different. Guys like Kayshon Boutte, Malik Cunningham, Ed Lee, they're all working.
Jalen Hurd.
They're all working on a different part of the field.
Right.
And Demario Douglas is with the starters, which I think is really notable. Last thing I have on the docket on the offense, and we got to take this call because we've left Sariq here on hold for 30 minutes. Last thing I want to talk about the offense. My biggest takeaway, I think, if we're trying to go big picture about the offense and where they're headed schematically and all that kind of stuff, I think that with the Hopkins sweepstakes, it allowed us to talk so much about receivers and receiver talent and all that kind of stuff. Ultimately, this offense is going to live or die by their offensive line. I think they have enough skill talent-wise that Bill O'Brien will scheme it up and they'll be able to move the football. Maybe it will look a little bit like 2021 in that sense, and hopefully you get a little bit better quarterback play than rookie Mac, and that's where the difference is. But this offensive line is – it's the breaking point for the entire team. I honestly feel, and there's no pads, there's no legal contact, so I'm waiting to see Riley Reif with the pads on, because once he can be physical with guys and he can bully guys and he can get his hands on people and things like that, it could totally change. But foot speed wise, Riley Reif has been a little bit slow. He's a little bit slow getting out to his landmarks. He's had some trouble protecting his corner. Those are things that you notice. Now, on the other side, Trent Brown looks great. Trent Brown looks ready to go. He looks like he's in good shape. I'm optimistic that that's headed in the right direction. Right tackle to me is still a worrisome spot. And I don't want to do the whole thing again, but the frustrating part still remains for me that we knew it. It was a weak spot on the roster it was a turnstile last year. Let's just be honest. It was a turnstile last year. They could have addressed it with a real solution in free agency. Like, this was a really good free agency tackle class.
Same for the draft.
Orlando Brown, Caleb McGarry, Jawan Taylor, missing one, McGlinchey.
Mike McGlinchey was the other one, yeah.
So they had some real guys that they could have signed, and I think in the draft, I give them a little bit of a pass in the draft because they weren't going to draft him over Christian Gonzalez.
Yeah, But even in like the second and third round,
they could have drafted somebody on day
could have drafted somebody.
Yeah. So, anyways, what are your non-padded, very early on, all the caveats? What are your early impressions of the Riley Reiff at right tackle? That's a tough name to say.
Riley
Reiff right tackle experience.
Well, it's first of all, and I'm having trouble with this one because you know me, I'm bad at like approximating things. Like, how long have you been in the car? I'll say half an hour. It's been 3 hours. Like, I have no concept of that. But look, the Patriots have some real behemoths to tackle. Trent Brown's 6'6", 380. Connor McDermott, I think, is like, 6'7", 330.
Yeah.
Calvin Anderson's a big dude as well. Riley Reiff is listed at 6'6", 310. He doesn't look big to me. And maybe that's who he's standing next to. He doesn't look small, but he doesn't look big. And
I'm just worried about the foot speed.
Well, so that's the thing. I'm like, if he had more size like that, you don't lose size with age, right?
Right.
Whereas some of the other stuff, like there was one today, and look, I actually thought Jelani Tavai had a really good day today all around. He made a couple of plays, so he was sort of locked in. But yeah, there was one today where nothing against Jelani Tavai. Speed's not his game. He's not the fastest guy on the team. Jelani Tavai ran right by him on the edge. And that was, that's a moment that you look at and you say, I don't, even with the pads, I don't know about that one.
I think the main thing is that it's not just basing it off of 2 days of training camp. His foot speed was starting to decline last year on film.
Like, I mean, look, he's 34. Dude, just say what it is. He's 34. There's not a lot of 34-year-old tackles in the NFL. There's a reason for that.
I just want to make sure it's clear that I thought his play was declining from last season in actual NFL games, and then he comes out here in camp and it doesn't look so hot either. Now, maybe they give it a couple weeks. Calvin Anderson comes off of NFI. Maybe he's somebody that they worked him out at left tackle for most of the spring because Trent Brown wasn't here. But maybe he actually ends up being the a right tackle solution. Maybe Connor McDermott jumps him on the depth chart. Maybe City Sal comes out of nowhere and is somebody that can make a push for the right tackle spot. But that, to me, offensively, maybe even more so than the receivers at this point, continues to be a worrisome situation. The one other thing that was a little bit worrisome, I want to see tomorrow if he's back out there and if he's fine. But Ty Montgomery did get a little bit dinged up today. That's his thing. Like, he's on the track every single time we see him. In the spring last year, in the summer last year, in the spring this year, first 2 days of training camp this year, he's looked the part of the pass catching back that the Patriots need. He has, but he's got to stay healthy. And if he's already getting dinged up, and I know you can go on your whole thing about the quarterback that threw him the ball.
No, it's a shame because he did look really good, and he looked good, last year. We'll see what happened today. Like, he didn't. Yeah. I think it's encouraging they didn't come right off the field.
I'm hopeful it was just a tweak and just kind of an awkward landing.
Scare, yeah. So he because after the play, he ran a few more routes, which he looked fine running the routes, but like in between plays, he's like shaking his leg and stuff. Right. And then he went over to the trainers and spent the rest of the day with them, did some light jogging. But if he's healthy, he's a game changer because you mentioned him in that third down back. He's been repping a lot at wide receiver, too. He's listed as a wide receiver.
I know he's not the I know it's been a while since he's produced, and that's the big thing with him. It's like, I'll believe it when I see it in an actual game. And I also know that he's not the most explosive guy. Like, he's not like this game-breaking receiving back or receiver/receiving back. But I think what's really unique about him is what you just said, is that he can also play wide receiver.
Yeah.
And Bill O'Brien is one of those guys that is just going to F with defenses with a guy like that.
And that's what I'm saying. You put, Evan, I said this to you a month ago. You put him and Mike Gesicki both in the formation, both in the huddle.
Yeah.
The defense has no idea is it 11, is it 12, is it 10, is it right?
Are they running? Are they passing?
It can be so many things.
They can be empty, or they could be under center and run the ball out of that, and it's all the same to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I think there's tremendous value in Ty Montgomery on this offense, and I still think he can play. It's not the same question as can he be healthy, but it's kind of the same question. How much do they put in the offense for him? Because the thing about Ty Montgomery is that you're not going to build the entire offense around him, but you'd like to put in some things that feature him and take advantage of that versatility. The problem is, if you can't count on him to be on the field, are you installing stuff that suddenly you can't use? I don't know that there's a guy.
Maybe it's Pierre Strong.
But Pierre Strong, I don't know how much he's never played wide receiver.
Yeah.
The guy I would go to is Jalen Hurd, but I haven't been super wowed by what I've seen from Jalen Hurd.
He can run, but he hasn't done anything else.
He's a little stiff.
Yeah.
He can run a straight line, but it's, how much of that stuff are you going to put in the playbook knowing are we going to be able to go back to this? Like if he gets hurt, now you're throwing out entire sections of the playbook. And then and even if he is healthy, all right, so you have, maybe you build it in as the season goes on. But that's my question with him is not even can they count on him. How much do they think they can count on him? How much of a significant role are they willing to give him in the big picture element of the offense, knowing that his availability is kind of up in the air? And we'll see if he's out there tomorrow. If this is, if it's a significant injury, then I think the question's answered. It's, maybe he starts season on IR or whatever, and they go back to it later. When he comes back, they start putting it in. But it is kind of a tough – you want this guy to be a big part of your offense. But if you plan for him to be a big part of your offense and he's not there and he has such a unique skill set that you don't really have a backup.
Right. I mean, Bill Belichick was asked what is his position, and he just said versatile.
Well, so then there's the other layer of this. It was reported today that the Patriots are maybe setting up a meeting with Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
Got to stick on schedule. Let's get to Sariq here. Sariq, I'm sorry to keep you on hold, and I hope you're saying your name correctly, but what do you got?
Hey, it's Sergio, actually.
Oh, but, Sergio.
Yeah, so cool to finally reach the best duo of the Patriots beat. Cool to say hi to Alex today at the Hill.
Oh, cool.
But anyway,
Thank you.
Thank you. If you were the person whose hand, I apologize. I shook somebody's hand, and I think I have a firm handshake, and somebody's like, ow, my hand. So if that's you, I apologize. Or whoever that was, if they're listening, they said they listened to the show, I apologize.
Well, anyways, talking about Ty and the running back depth, I think it's not a great sign that Harry, Strong, and JJ all split reps with the ones after Mondre and Ty were out. Do you think Cook would be a real upgrade that allows Ty to maybe play more as a receiver and, like you said, maybe he doesn't get as injured?
Yeah, it's a good question, Sergio, and thanks for the call and for listening. So, Dalvin Cook, I think that's a good transition there. He set us up for it.
Just to go back to the Ty Montgomery report, and I'm saying how much of this stuff can you build in? If you have a guy like Dalvin Cook who can – I don't know that he has the wide receiver background Ty Montgomery does, but I'd be comfortable giving him some of those slot responsibilities just based on his overall skill set and athleticism. Yeah. If you sign him, because you got to figure out, too, how to get him and Ramondre on the field at the same time without being in 12, or 21. Without being in 21. I always get those mixed up. Yeah, but I want to say it right. You build that stuff in for Dalvin Cook instead of Ty Montgomery, and then Ty Montgomery becomes the backup for that role, and you're not relying on him as much. So I wonder if that would be part of the conversation with Dalvin Cook.
So here's my 2 cents on Dalvin Cook. One, just along that line, I did go back and watch some of his 2021 tape just to have it ready. I do that. And
got to be prepared.
Got to be prepared. And I was actually pleasantly surprised at how much Kevin O'Connell used him in the passing game as a receiver.
Okay. I'm actually looking for the snap percentage.
So they ran. They have the Vikings and O'Connell. KOC has their own empty package, right? That Bill O'Brien's going to feature here. Different coaches, but just saying they both run empty. And Dalvin Cook did line up quite a bit as a receiver. Now, what they did with him as a receiver out of empty was they ran him on a lot of shallow drags, and they just had him kind of run down the. Run across the field, and then they would just dump it to him and just create these catch and run opportunities. So essentially it's just like a long handoff.
Right.
And that's still something that they could do if he does come here. The long story short on Dalvin Cook is that, as Macro said yesterday, There's a weird thing going on with the veteran market right now, especially at running back, but really there's a couple of really good players still available, like Yannick Ngakoue, Jadeveon Clowney. Like, it's not just running backs. Marcus Peters just signed a couple days ago. It's rare, as Groh put it, that this many good players are still available this time of year. So in that sense, and we made the same argument with DeAndre Hopkins, it's a market deficiency that Dalvin Cook is still available on July 27th. And when I say a market deficiency, I mean the fact that they're not going to have to break the bank to pay him, because that money is not out there for him. He's not going to make $15 million a year. He's not going to make $12 million a year.
I don't even think the money.
I think he's going to make $6 million.
But I don't think the money's the issue with Dalvin Cook, in the sense that he's not getting paid. He wants to reset his market.
Yeah.
He wants to go somewhere where he can prove how good he is, and is he going to come be a spell back here?
So that's my main concern.
That's
as well.
the bigger issue.
It's double, right? Because one, he needs the opportunity to show what he can still do, and secondly, we know the Patriots, and we know that they're going to tie his money up in incentives. And if he's not getting the touches to meet the incentives, then he's not going to make his money.
So, and that goes back to the point of, you have to find for this to work. Yeah. You have to find ways that him and Ramondre are on the field at the same time. That's basically what you have to do.
Now, with all that said, because it sounds like I'm out on Dalvin Cook, I'm still there for the talent grab. Like, I still think that at some point you have to realize, it creates a redundancy with Ramondre Stevenson. You are running the risk that Dalvin Cook is going to be like 100 touches below his incentives, in terms of, incentives won't be tied up in touches. They'll probably be tied up in like snap counts and yards and touchdowns. And if he's probably not going to break the thresholds for a lot of his incentives, and so you run into the problem of maybe him being disgruntled because of that later on in the season. There's a lot of things that I think you have to be concerned, or just kind of like a little bit lukewarm on. The last thing I'll say, and I know you're going to hate this, Alex, but the nerds do not like Dalvin Cook anymore. His analytics.
Well, the nerds don't like running backs, period.
Right, but even in relative to running backs, his efficiency last year in terms of the advanced metrics completely dropped off.
Boo.
So, with that being said, I'm still here for the talent grab. I like talented football players on my football team, and if this is going to be your offense, what we just described earlier, play action and touch deep throws and quick hitters, and you're going to have to run the ball. You're going to have to be able to run the ball, and Ramondre can't run the ball 300 times again. Right. So I'm for it, but I don't think it happens, mainly because I think the Jets will offer him a much higher base salary. But I also am just not like, I wouldn't be as upset about it as I was about DeAndre Hopkins. Let me put you that way.
They don't need Cook. Like, I don't know how much better Cook makes them in the big picture.
Yeah.
He'd be a good player to have, but Hopkins, I thought, was the guy that potentially alters the win total. I don't know that Cook. Maybe he makes it easier to win some already winnable games, and he makes some games that are going to be tougher a little closer. But I'll give you this number on Cook, though. This is interesting. So last year as a receiver, lined up out wide 36 times. That was a career high. He lined up in the slot just 8 times. He lined up in line 49 times.
Yeah, so in line.
Is that like right behind the tackle thing?
Yeah, it's like he was standing up. Like, he's not like hand in the dirt in line. It's like a wing position.
But
basically.
You could do that. You could put him there and put Ramondre in the backfield, and that would work.
Yeah, they did that mostly, like I said, out of empty, and the idea was to obviously run him through traffic and picks and stuff like that and get him free on crossing routes. And he was pretty effective on those. Like, he was able to catch the football a couple times on 3rd down and turn up field and get 8 yards on 3rd and 7, like that type of stuff. He converted a couple of times that I remember seeing in some games. So I don't think he's not a pass catching back. He's not James White, right? Like, he's not going to come in here and catch 65 passes. But I do think that he brings a little bit to the passing game, a little bit to the running game. Like I said, I'd sign him but I wouldn't go out of my way to sign him. I would have gone out of my way to sign DeAndre Hopkins.
Exactly, yeah.
That's sort of how I feel about it. All right, let's talk about defense really quickly. A couple of defensive points I wanted to get to. The first one was Kyle Duggar.
Yep.
He's
very good.
Back-to-back days of interceptions now. I think he's had some really great coverage on the tight ends as well, just outside of the interceptions. The way that this looks to me and the way that this sounds to me, I have never heard Bill Belichick, I shouldn't say never, but most of the time it's about a premium position. Like last year when he said, "Oh, let's wait and see what Lamar Jackson signs for."
Yeah.
Bill Belichick this morning said that players like Kyle Duggar go early in the draft and get paid a lot.
Right.
So the team sees it coming. The team knows that Kyle Duggar is going to be a big money contract type of guy. He's off to a great start in camp. It's 2 days, but he's off to a good start. This sounds and feels to me a lot like Jonathan Jones a few years ago, Shaq Mason a few years before that. Have a good August. Come September 1st, we'll get an extension
right.
done. And I think that if he continues to have a strong camp, I would put some money down that he's going to get some money come September. I think that they would make it work on an extension if he just goes out there and has a big month of August.
So it's interesting. Matt Gross said yesterday he was asked about just extensions in general, just the philosophy behind it. And he said that the tricky thing about extensions is you're working with an unknown. You don't know the market because there's a whole season ahead, both for the player and the team.
Right.
And look, there's a number of different ways you can interpret that, but in the context of Kyle Duggar, his value is probably not going to go down.
No.
Because even if he has a below expectation season, which he's not going to, but even if he does, he still has 2 really strong years to point at, or 3 really strong years to point at and say, this is the player I am. Whereas if he exceeds expectations, you're talking about, it's not even about gauging the safety market. You're talking about a guy who's going to reset the safety market.
I would say that it almost becomes like he almost becomes a defensive playmaker. It's like
I think you start getting into some of that lower end top tier is a bad way to put it, but like low
like
end number one
James,
cornerback money. Yeah. So I think they know, like, his value's only going to go up.
Yeah.
Or it's not only going to go up, but it's not going to go down.
Right.
His value's not going to go down at this point. So if they want to sign him, it's going to be cheaper to sign him now. And there is a little bit of risk, of course, that comes with that. But
with anybody,
you take the risk that comes with that now rather than trying to sit down with him in March after he's had, some people think he could be an All-Pro this year. After he's had a borderline All-Pro season, when he has all of these, his agent's going to go to a combine, he's going to talk to people, see what the value is. When he has all these potential offers sitting there, it's going to be a lot easier to talk to him then, or a lot harder to talk to him then. So
yeah, I mean, we've seen.
I think it makes a lot of sense for them to get the deal done.
We've seen when
now
these in-house free agents come to market, we've seen that it gets pricey.
Yeah.
J.C. Jackson, I think, immediately priced himself out of New England when he hit the market. Joe Tooney priced himself out of the New England when he hit the open market. So. Again, I think that this is one of those things where, and I honestly wouldn't be totally shocked if the Patriots actually said this to Kyle Duggar coming into training camp, like, show out in camp, have the strong summer, and we'll talk again.
Right.
And they have that.
Well, we know they're already talking to guys because Josh Uche said today that his team has talked to the Patriots about an extension. Like, and that could just be, hey, extension?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, we can chat. Like, it could be just setting up the talk, but, like, it's on their minds, clearly.
Yeah. Okay, so Kyle Duggar, good football player.
Yes, very good football
First
player.
impressions of Christian Gonzalez.
Kid can play.
Yeah.
Kid can play. I said when we did our training camp preview show, I think for him, I think I'm pretty comfortable, definitely more so than most rookies in terms of where he's at as a player individually.
Yeah.
It's just a little... For any guy coming in, for a first overall pick coming in any position, there's little nuances to the NFL game that players have to pick up. And as good as you are, sometimes that can take a little bit. So for me, watching him, it's all right. How long is the learning curve going to be until we're really talking about him as, like, locked in as an NFL player? Is it going to be the season? Is it going to be a couple months? Is it going to be, by the end of camp? Is he just going to come in and kind of hit the ground roll in the first few days? And with the red zone work, it's tough to get a full picture of that. But, like, there hasn't been once that I've looked, and again, it's very limited sample size. But I don't know if there's been one play, and I've watched him quite a bit.
Yeah.
That I've watched him and said, rookie mistake. Yeah. All right, he's got to figure that out. Like, he's for a young guy too. They generally draft guys that are 23, 24 years old. For a kid who just turned 21, he is a very mature player, and that's very exciting to see.
Yeah, he's got a great grasp of what they're doing defensively.
Yeah.
He's gotten beat a few times. He's a corner. He's going to get beat.
Yeah.
That's the nature of the position. He's gotten beat a few times, but all of it is more, I personally think, just physical, he'll get there in terms of his ability to stay glued to guys at the top of routes and anticipate things like that as he matures and as he sees more reps in the NFL. But what I'm really optimistic about is how tied into what they're doing defensively from a schematic perspective. He knows how to play to his leverage. Like, you see him in man coverage, like sitting on the correct hip of the receiver because he knows he's got the help inside.
Right.
You know, you see him walling off the routes that he needs to be worried about and not worried about the routes where the help is. That's something that a lot of great corners, if you watch them play, that's what makes them able to make so many great plays and suffocate receivers, is that they know their leverage, they know their assignment, and I think that he has a really good grasp of what they're doing. He ran that switch, that banjo with Miles Bryant yesterday, where his receiver broke outside, Miles Bryant's receiver broke inside, and they just passed it off seamlessly. Those are the types of the high IQ plays and that advanced kind of understanding and feel and instinct for coverage that is really, really optimistic. I think that he's as far along as a Patriots rookie. Like, he's going to be a day one outside corner.
Yeah,
he's going to start day one at outside corner against the Eagles in week 1. Like, I don't have any and I don't know. I don't really know the last time they had a rookie where it felt like, A, that was going to happen, and B, it should have. Like, no offense to Cole Strange, but Cole Strange was put in as a starting left guard last year because they had nobody else to play there.
Right.
They have some other corners that theoretically could play over Christian Gonzalez if it wasn't going well. And I don't think that that's really going to be the case. Really quickly,
you want a little NFL breaking news real quick?
Sure.
Joe Burrow was carted off practice. I don't know if it's ankle or calf, but
oh boy.
In Cincinnati, and I saw some people tweeting that Jalen Ramsey got hurt as well. So, unfortunate reality of camp.
Yeah. Really quickly as well, not just football-wise, Jack Jones, the fallout there, definitely have seen him demoted to second-team reps in the secondary. So it's really going to be, at least for right now, until Jack Jones' legal situation works itself out or doesn't, it's going to be Christian Gonzalez and Jonathan Jones on the outside, and then it's Miles Bryant versus Marcus Jones for the slot role. How do you feel about that? I really think that's still a really good group. I mean, obviously it's better with Jack and with Jonathan Jones back inside in the slot, but I still think that's a really strong group, and I think Jonathan Jones has showed us last year, okay, maybe he's not going to be shadowing Justin Jefferson and Stephon Diggs. Like, you did need a little bit better player, and that's why Christian Gonzalez is here. But I still think he can play outside corner, and I'm not too concerned about him being outside again.
Yeah, my question with Jack Jones is, are they preparing for a potential suspension or something, or do they think that this is the best group they have, or like why is he getting fewer reps? I don't know. We're just not going to know, and I don't think they tell us if we ask them. But
I think it has to be that they are preparing for not having him, whether it's a suspension, whether it's team mandated where they just say, until your legal situation resolves itself, we're not going to put you out there. Whatever the case may be, whatever the reasoning is, I'm not going to speculate, but I think that they are looking at it like, we cannot get this defense ready and rely on the fact that we're going to have Jack Jones out there and have him be a part of the nucleus of the defense and then get him stripped away, and then you're in trouble. Then now you're getting Jonathan Jones or Jalen Mills or someone like that ready to play corner like a week out. Philly's coming on the bus, and you're just starting to get those guys ready. Like, you don't want that to happen. So that's a synopsis of the first 2 days of Patriots training camp. We'll be back next week on Thursday, probably around the same time. 3 o'clock is about when we can the dust settles for us and we can get on the air. So around 3 o'clock next Thursday to break down another what will hopefully be a couple of padded practices at that point, and we can really get in to the nitty-gritty of training camp. But it's been a fun couple of days. It's good to see the team back out there. Good to have some things to talk about, and we will definitely continue to monitor the Dalvin Cook situation. I think that could heat up a little bit as well.
I would think by the time we do the show next week, we have a resolution.
Are you ready for another sweepstakes like DeAndre Hopkins? How do you feel about that?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. So until then, signing off for Alex Barth, Marine Behind the Glass, I'm Evan Lazar. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check Patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.